Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Star Wars The Force Awakens video. I haven't done one of these in a while, mainly because, the videos that I have done so far I think have covered most of my kind of preview thoughts on the movie before it comes out. I touched on the first trailer, some of the major news like at a celebration. So what this video is going to be is kind of going to be my final thoughts on the movie, I suppose, before I actually see it. I'm going to be seeing the movie next Saturday, so December 19th, fairly early in the morning, and that's when I'll have my review of the movie out. But this is just going to be some kind of, as I said, final thoughts on the movie before it comes out. Kind of, for the most part, for myself, just so I can kind of compare how I felt going in versus how it actually turns out. Overall, I would say I'm really excited. Of course, I'm excited for this movie. I'm a Star Wars fan. It's been like 10 years since Revenge of the Sith. Of course, I'm excited for this movie. The thing I'm most excited for is the new characters. I'm excited to see Rey, Finn, Poe, Kylo Ren. Those characters are to me the most interesting ones going into this movie because they have completely new stories to tell. I'll get into some of that a little bit later on, but in terms of the original cast, I'm just kind of like, Luke and Leia have an interesting thing going for them because they're Force sensitive, and the movie's called The Force Awakens, so it kind of suggests that the Force hasn't really been present in the galaxy for the last while, and so Luke, obviously they're keeping a big secret, though we know Mark Hamill is in the movie for sure. So he is interesting just because they've kept him a secret, plus he's the most powerful, I suppose, Force sensitive in the galaxy at this point in time, so it'll be interesting just to see what he's like, how powerful he is when we do get to see him. Leia, then, is interesting because she found out in Return of the Jedi that she is Force sensitive, and I'm kind of wondering, like, has she done anything with that? Has she trained at all? And just finding out, like, the whole situation, like what her relationship with Han is like, what happened there. We know she's a general in this movie, and like the rebellion is now kind of a much bigger thing, and it's more like two relatively even factions going up against each other. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with Leia here, just in regards to her force sensitivity. On the other hand, Han Solo, not incredibly excited for him. Like, obviously, you've seen all the reactions of people, like, saying how when they first saw him in the trailer, it brought a tear to their eye and stuff like that. And I'm just like, okay, he's a cool character, but I didn't really freak out when I saw him, because for me, of the main cast of the originals, he was definitely the least interesting of the characters. And, like, Harrison Ford even said this himself. Like, now that he's finally talking about Star Wars a bit more and seems enthusiastic, he was asked the question about, basically, there were rumors coming out around Revenge of the Sith that you'd wished your character was Return of the Jedi, that you'd wished your character was like killed off, and he said, not quite, but something like that. And that he basically, what he says is that he felt that the character was kind of underdeveloped, that he didn't really have an arc in the movies, and he wanted something more, and he felt like the character had kind of done enough in like the three movies that he was in, and like the only real way to finish the arc was to have him die. And uh, we'll cover the death thing in a minute, but with regards to like the whole feeling underdeveloped, definitely I'd agree with that, and that like most of his development as a character happens in like the first movie. He is kind of staying out of the rebellion, and then has this moment where he realizes that that's where he needs to be, and then from there on out, basically, the stuff with the bounty hunters happens. He's frozen in carbonite. His past comes back to kind of haunt him, get him. His friends save him. That's really the arc for Han Solo, and it's quite basic, and you don't really get much development with him outside of the relationship with Leia in the whole movie. Really, 5 and 6. Again, he's still cool. I really do want to see where they go with him. But what I'm excited for with Han is not necessarily just like, oh, I'm eager to see him again. I'm excited because I think the only reason Harrison Ford would come back for this movie is because, as he said in loads of interviews, the script is good. He liked the script. He clearly is excited for the arc that his character is going on in these new movies, or at least this one. Um, and that gets me excited because I feel like similarly, I suppose, to the actor about the character, and that like I feel going into this movie I don't really know him incredibly well, and so I'm excited to see if they have some sort of an arc for him in the movie. Whether or not they'll kill him off, like a lot of the rumors have been, I'm not sure. It could be this really dramatic way to end the movie, but I don't know if they do that. I kind of have a feeling like if they ever do kill him off, it'll be episode 8 when it happens, but we'll have to see. I'm not really sure. This video isn't really to make predictions about what I think is going to happen, but just, if it happens, I'm not going to be like completely surprised, but I'm sure if they do go down the road of killing off Han Solo, it'll be a really powerful moment when it happens, because it is a big character. So there's that. Some of the other characters that we've heard about, like Captain Phasma and stuff like that, I'm just like, okay, cool, but we don't know anything about them just yet, and like, some of the First Order kind of officers and stuff like that, not really incredibly sure about. For sure, I think that the thing I'm probably most interested about is just the whole idea of this movie, the title of the movie, The Force Awakens. Why was it asleep? Why does it need to come back? I think the opening crawl of this movie, episode 7, The Force Awakens, and then the yellow text, is going to be really interesting with regards to what it says. In terms of just giving us that little bit of backstory in between 6 and 7. And then, where we pick up is going to be fascinating as well, and that Rey clearly has some sort of a secret. Her and Finn, we don't know their last names, and so they're definitely hinting at something there. Is she a Skywalker? Is she a Solo? That's the main thing going on there. But it seems like, once again, our kind of trio of heroes is 2 Force sensitives and 1 non-Force sensitive in Poe, but he has the skill of being a pilot, which I suppose links into one of the things I'm a little bit worried about going into this movie. I've said before many times in these videos that I like all of the Star Wars films, but if I was to really get down to it, I would say I prefer the prequels to the originals, just because I find the story of them, the character development in those, to be just a lot more up my alley than the originals, which are quite, they're good and some really classic cinema moments, but I find the character development quite basic, the plot quite basic. So going into this movie, I'm a little bit worried that they're going to do nothing with this movie but try to appeal to original trilogy fans. And I'm not saying that just because the original cast is going to be in it, but just with regards to some of the stuff that's been said in the lead up to this movie, the whole, we're going to try and use the least amount of CG possible, so we're not like the prequels, and then it's just kind of like, yeah, but the prequels used a lot of models and stuff like that. Yeah, it used CGI, but it used a lot of models as well. So it's just stuff like that. I'm worried that they're going to try and avoid doing anything that relates to the prequels whatsoever. The thing I'm most worried about is lightsaber fighting. I thought the prequels just nailed what lightsaber fighting between Force sensitives was meant to be like. I look back on the originals, and the lightsaber fights are just very lackluster to me when I see them. And I'm worried that we're going to go back to that style of lightsaber fighting in this movie. In part, just because the prequels, most of our characters who use lightsabers were exceptionally skilled, trained in lightsaber combat for ages. Whereas I feel this movie is going to be full of characters who aren't as familiar with using a lightsaber. Kylo Ren, by the looks of things, is this kind of want-to-be Sith Lord who kind of somehow made the lightsaber himself, and it's a bit all over the place. He's studied artifacts and stuff like that, so roughly knows how to fight. Finn looks like he's perhaps somewhat skilled in using melee weapons, but maybe, him using a lightsaber in this movie is going to be one of his first times really involved in the one-on-one sword fight. Rey, by the sounds of things, will use the lightsaber at some point, and again, that's probably the thing I'm most excited for. Like, are they going to reveal that she used to train as a Jedi or something like that and is actually really skilled, and she's going to be the really strong fighter, or what? I'm just a little worried that we're going to have another bunch of inexperienced fighters and the lightsaber fighting isn't going to be as good as it could be, because definitely. Duel of the Fates, Battle of Heroes from episode 1 and 3. Those are the fights that you need to be on the level of in terms of a really big fight in this movie. And so I hope they at least are aware of the fact that, look, we've got a young cast here. They can do some really impressive stuff with the fighting here. You're not limited by like the technology of how they did the lightsabers in the originals. They're not limited by like the fact that Darth Vader just the people that they're using to do the sword fights. They can I hope they keep the acrobatic style and bring it back at least a little bit. The other thing is just that I'm noticing a lot of similarities between this movie and A New Hope. Just the kind of breakdown of the characters, as I said. 2 Force sensitives and the non-Force sensitive is the pilot. They've changed things up a little bit in that, like, Poe is more in the Luke kind of role where he flies an X-Wing. But again, I think they're potentially setting up that, you know, the Millennium Falcon will at some point become Poe Dameron's ship, but I'm not really sure about that. That's just some crazy speculation. You know, we've got the guy discovering that he's Force sensitive. We've got Rey, who starts off on a desert planet, which, you know, it's not Tatooine, but it is still a desert planet. And at that point, I'm just kind of like, why not just use Tatooine here? You're trying to be new, but you're doing roughly the same thing, you know, starting off on a kind of backwater planet. And then just the idea, you know, our villain is masked, is a masked character, that, you know, of course they'll do something interesting because Darth Vader's come before and he seems obsessed with Darth Vader, but, you know, another masked Sith Lord, another cool kind of trooper person in Captain Phasma, who I assume is going to take on this sort of Boba Fett role, and that sort of thing. I'm just a little worried that they're going to try too hard to kind of hit all the notes that the original trilogy fans want, and it's going to maybe take away from what this movie could have been as a unique movie itself. That in itself isn't like a complete negative that I'm like crazy worried, but I'm just like, please be unique and just not just make it a New Hope Mark II. That's what I really don't want. Like, the prequels even had some references in that, like, you know, we had similar moments, I suppose, in the prequels that kind of, I suppose, retroactively kind of set up moments later on, like in Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. There's a very similar moment to, like, A New Hope with Obi-Wan at a bar, someone unsavory comes up to him, he chops his arm off, you know. That was a cool moment to have. Like, is that going to happen again with another character? Not really sure, but I'm just a little bit worried that this movie is going to be trying way too hard to appeal to the original trilogy fans because they didn't like the prequels. Whereas I would much prefer that they just accept 6 movies, they're out. Some Star Wars fans like all of them, some of them don't. But this movie, Episode 7, is going to be its own unique thing. I hope they do that. And so yeah, and that's the main reason why I say, like, I'm most excited for the new characters, and I hope they use the new characters in a similar way to, like, say Avatar, with what they did with Korra, where when it came to Korra, the ATLA crew that were alive, they used them effectively as kind of mentor characters in a way to kind of enhance the other characters, rather than, no, you've come to see Korra to see the ATLA characters grown up. I'm a little bit worried that there's a bunch of fans out there that have only come to see this movie to see Han, Leia, and Luke, and that we're maybe gonna get a bit of backlash when they're not in the movie as much as people expect. So I'm fully prepared to go into this movie like expecting, like, at most, you know, like 5 minutes of Luke towards the very end of the movie. You know, Leia to be in it a bit more than Luke, but not as much as you'd maybe expect, and then Han to be the kind of more present of the original cast in the movie for the most part. And to me, that's the perfect way to do things. You know, you slowly introduce your new cast to your old cast, and you have them take on much more of an important role than the original cast. I could see Luke becoming very important in, like, Episode 8 and 9, but for now they're setting up a mystery about where he is and what's going on. And that in itself is the thing I'm most excited to see with the original cast. then just in general, like, I am excited just to see, I suppose, the overall plot of the universe, where it goes from here. Like, episode 6 makes it seem like the rebellion has won, the Empire is just flat out gone, complete victory, but we know already going in that that's not the case. That the Empire remained around, they lost their head, obviously, with the death of Darth Vader and the Emperor, and the Death Star, of course, but they stick around, the battle isn't fully over, and then this First Order, which we don't know now the origins, but they come out of the woodwork, and things change, and we're still in a battle right now. Oh, the other thing I'm a little bit worried about is that they seem to be going down this road of, like, the First Order are going to have a Death Star like weapon. I don't think it's going to be like a spherical, like a planet like thing, but they're going to have some crazy super weapon that they're building, that apparently can destroy planets or is more powerful. I'm a little bit worried if we get some sort of a, like, trench run battle to, like, destroy the super weapon at the end. I'm just like, is it the only plot we can do in Star Wars movies now, especially referencing the originals? I just don't want them to go too hard with the references. I'm going to appreciate some, of course, if they do some similar things. But, if they go too overboard and just make it, as I said, A New Hope Mark II, I think I'll be a little bit disappointed. But overall, new Star Wars movie. Like, everything I said here, even the stuff I'm worried about, goes out of the window come Saturday, because we're going to see a new Star Wars movie, Episode 7. As I said, it's been 10 years, there's been TV shows since then, but this is a movie, our first live-action movie since Revenge of the Sith. I'm really excited. And to see it, to see fans' reactions to it, to see movie reviewers' reaction to it, and especially just to see how well it does at the box office. Like, most people are expecting this to do exceptionally well, like the biggest movie of all time. And I really am looking forward to seeing those numbers as they come out. So, they're my thoughts going in. I'm overall positive. I'm just a little bit worried as, like, a prequel fan that they're just going to do nothing but original trilogy references. That's the main thing I don't want to happen here. But in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are going into the movie, when you're going to see it, stuff like that, how excited you are. But other than that, thanks for watching this video, and bye.